Hi everyone, it's that time again when you might be starting to think about your year end. The year end process itself is straightforward. It's a simple wizard that includes a few options. However, before this, there's the preparation stage, ensuring you've posted everything, and of course, it involves running reports. But do you understand your reports and also the opportunities that you have to develop them? Ensuring they're accurate, but also that they provide you with the correct level of detail. Throughout January and February, we're running a series of live webinars to help develop your knowledge and understanding of the management reports available in Sage 50 accounts. We'll be starting with the basics, understanding nominal records and the structure of the nominal ledger. This is also ideal if you need to create new nominal codes. Following on from this, we'll examine the chart of accounts looking at all aspects, including adding new layouts and editing existing ones. Our attention then turns to the management reports themselves, the trial balance, the profit and loss, and of course the balance sheet. We'll explain how to run them, what they show, and most importantly, how the figures calculate. We want you to be confident. On the management report session, one of the most common scenarios we're asked about is where you haven't yet run your year end, but need to generate a profit and loss report for your next financial year. We've got your back with this and have a specific webinar that explores the options you have available, whether it's running reports for your new financial year or even a previous one. The last webinar in the series looks at reconciling your age debtors and age creditor reports at year end, ensuring that the balances agree with the figures on your trial balance and the balance sheet. Of course, this could be done at any time, such as part of your month-end process. So come along and we'll demonstrate what to check and how to run them to ensure everything agrees. If you'd like to attend any or all of these sessions to help develop your knowledge and boost your confidence, then simply head along to sage.co.uk/webinars and register for your free place. These, along with loads of other topics, including how to run your year end, are available. See you soon.
Hi everybody! You might be approaching the end of your financial year and it's the perfect time to get your Sage 50 accounts in order. The year-end process itself is simple. It doesn't matter if you're a seasoned pro or if it's your first time, it's just a few steps in the wizard. But before you dive in, there are some important checks and housekeeping tasks that will just make everything run smoothly. Things like archiving your company data just keeps it organised and improves performance. We'll show you how to create an archive and why it's a good habit. Then there's backing up your data, which is essential before making any changes, and we'll share best practice just to ensure your backups are reliable. And avoid accidental postings into a closed period by setting a lock date. It's quick to do and it saves headaches later. We'll also guide you through the year-end wizard as well, step by step, so you can complete the process with confidence. If you need to tidy up older unused records, we'll show you how to do that as well in our Delete Your Records webinar. And then we'll also cover how to clear the audit trail. It can help speed things up and we'll explain when it's appropriate and how to do that safely. So to help you to prepare, we're hosting a series of live webinars throughout January and February. These sessions will give you practical tips and demonstrations so you feel confident about your year end and keep your accounts in great shape. Don't miss this opportunity to start the new year with clean, organised data and peace of mind. Make sure you reserve your spot today at sage.co.uk/webinars, and we look forward to seeing you there. Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's well today and having a good day so far. Welcome to today's webinar. So today we're going to be having a look at clearing out old records that are no longer in use. And in this session, we're going to be concentrating on things like old customers, supplier records, along with nominal and bank records as well. Next week, we're going to be clearing out old invoices and orders and quotes, along with stock transactions and records as well. So if you want a bit more information on how to clear those out and the implications around that, don't forget to get signed up for those ones too. But if you've not heard me before, I'm Laura and I'm going to be the host for today. And we've got Michael in the background who's going to be picking up any of those questions that you might have around today's topic. So just as usual, before we get started, just those housekeeping rules there. Your mic will be muted automatically, but you'll see there is a little question icon on the toolbar where you can submit any questions that you may have for Michael. So make sure you pop them in there and keep him busy. And I will be including the slides in the handout section as well, as there are links at the end, which you might find useful too. So if you want to download those, just make sure you do that during the session. There's also the printer-friendly version as well, if you want to print that just to make notes on. So, as I mentioned, we're going to be looking at clearing out old records. So how to do that, and also the criteria around that needs to be met around removing those records as well. We'll be going through some demonstrations around this as well, so we can have a look and just see what it looks like in the programme. And like I mentioned there, we've got links around the topic on here on the slides too. So make sure if you do want those links on there, just to download those during the session. So why should you look out clearing out your old records? So clearing out records, it's a completely optional task. It's not something that you have to do, but it just ensures that the data that you use on a day-to-day basis is just up to date there. Having just the relevant data in your live company can make things like searches and filters work more effectively for you too. And clearing out all data, it can speed up general processing as well in the software in some cases. Now, what I will say is if you are experiencing speed issues, please bear in mind that there could be external environmental factors such as the hardware that you're using, or if you're using a server, so the data is held elsewhere rather than local on your computer. These are all things that can impact processing speeds. But if you do have a lot of data in there, that can also contribute to it. So when clearing out records, and to prevent anything being deleted in error, there is a criteria that a record must meet. So you can delete a customer or a supplier record if they have no remaining balance, for example, no transactions on their activity, and no project associations on there as well. You can delete nominal records if they have no balance, no transactions associated with them, and they're not control accounts. So if it is, you would need to just look at that, changing that control account to another nominal code. We can have a look at that in the demonstration there as well. And the nominal can't be used as the default cash sales account either. There are a few more less common ones, such as not being used with direct debit manager or invoice payments, and not being marked as CIS account either. But there are guides on there. I've popped a link on there as well, which gives you the criteria, because obviously different records will have different criteria. But if you can't delete a record, and you do, or you might just not want to delete them, maybe because you might deal with that customer or supplier again in the future, you can mark it as inactive, and I'll touch on that a bit later as well. But we will be covering inactive records in more detail again on Monday, if you'll miss the last session there. So Monday at 2 o'clock, as inactive records, it's a whole webinar in itself, but it is good to know what the alternatives are, and I will touch on it just to show you how you can mark a record as inactive. So I'm going to pop into my system. We'll have a look at a bit of demonstration there. So I'm just going to switch over there to my Sage screen. So before you delete anything, the first thing that you'd be doing is just taking a backup of the data. And the reason for that is if you delete something by mistake, or you put a date in to clear records down from, you put the wrong date in, you can just restore that back and start again. So there's no big sort of issue there if you've taken a backup. So standard way just to take your backup, you just be going to File at the top, down to Backup, just lets you know it's going to close all open windows, just say yes to that, bring that over, and then you can just take your backup on there. You can decide which files to include. The main one's going to be your data files on there. You can change the file name if you want to as well, just to say maybe it's before you've cleared out transactions, and you can change the location as well. We do have a webinar on taking a backup as well if you want sort of any more in detail on that, but just to sort of show you how to take that backup there. The other thing that I would always recommend doing is taking an archive of the company as well. And I am going through archives next Wednesday at 11 o'clock, but just to show you how you can take an archive, which is like a screenshot of all of your data within Sage. But we're just going to go to Tools at the top, Period End, and we've got the option of Archive Company there. I'll just drag that over there. For your archive, you can change the description again and the archive folder, but it saves it, the path to the archive, it will save alongside your data there. So you can't actually change that, but you can amend the folder name and the description. So I would always say, take your backup, take an archive on there before you do anything, because then you've got that data in the form of a backup, or you can pop back in and view it in an archive really easily there. Like I say, I'll be going through archiving in more detail next Wednesday at 11. So if you want to get signed up for that one. So once you've backed it up and you've taken that archive, then you can look at start deleting. So there's a few different ways that you can delete. We'll have a look at customers first of all on there. So the first one that we're going to have a look at is I've got a customer here. It's got a 0 balance. So I just know that I'm not going to deal with them anymore and I want to delete that. Okay. I can highlight and I can click delete at the top. It'll just say, are you sure you want to delete records? And the first thing I want to show you is this message. And it tells me that not all records selected were able to be deleted on there. And it gives us the reasons as to why. The top two are the most common ones. So there's balance remaining on the account. Well, we can see it's got a 0 balance, so it's not that one. The next one is it's got transactions still associated with the account. So has it got an activity on the account, which we'll have a look at. The other two are the account is still associated with project or direct debit mandate associated with the account. So these are the things that you would need to be checking. So if I close out of that, and we can have a look at the activity on here just to see, have I got any transactions on here? So I'm going to click on activity at the top, which will just open it up for me. We can see we've got some transactions on here. So although the balance is 0, I can't delete this particular customer record because there's transactions still on the activity. The way to clear down the activity would be to run the clear audit trail, which essentially when you clear the audit trail in the program, you select a date and you can clear down old transactions that meet that criteria. And that's something that Michael's recently covered on a webinar, and we do have a recording on clearing the audit trail there too. But the transactions on here were quite recent anyway, so that's something that maybe I'm not wanting to delete just as of yet. So because I can't delete it, what I could do is mark it as inactive, which I'll come on to a bit later on. So we have a look at this one. Again, 0 balance. I might want to delete that one. We'll just have a check, see if it's got any activity on there. No, so there's no activity on here. So say I'm not going to use this customer anymore. We can just highlight the customer, click the delete at the top, or we can right click and you can choose delete from within here as well. So we can delete the customer just from here if I can find it there, the delete option. So 2 different options on there. If you can't see the delete option up here, it may just be that if you right click, you can select and deselect items. So if I just untick delete, you can see that's actually disappeared off my toolbar there. If you right click, you can pop it back in. So if you're ever thinking, well, I don't have that along the top, if you right click just to check, and there, popped it back in again. Just a little tip there. So I'm just going to click delete to delete my Amy's Antiques customer. It's just checking I want to delete it. And I'm just going to say yes to that. And as you can see, it just deletes it out there for me. So nice and easy. So it needs to hit that criteria. So as well as the balance being 0, there needs to be no transactions on there. If there is activity in the way of the transactions, then we can look at marking it as an active there as well. But I'll come on to that in a little bit. You can also select multiple records just by, now if I hold down my shift key, because I'm in the Windows selection style, I can highlight multiple records. Now you might have it where you can actually just click on the records themselves and it will highlight multiple ones without deselecting them, and that's the Sage selection style. And the way of changing that, because if you can see there, When I click on multiple ones, it's actually deselecting the one before. If you would like to change it, so you've got the Sage selection style where it highlights them like that, you just go to Tools at the top and then pop into Options. Just tells us it's going to close those other windows, and we will get this window here. And if we just click on the Environment tab, we can change it from the Windows selection style where you have to either hold down your Control or your Shift where you're clicking, and you can just click on multiple. So if I just change it, click OK to that, I'll pop into my customers again. And I know you can't actually see that I'm not holding the Shift key, so you'll just have to trust me on this one. But you can see now I'm just clicking on multiple transactions and it's just keeping them all highlighted. So I can sort of bulk highlight a few of them if I want to on there, and then I can go to delete again at the top, and it'll just say, do you wish to delete these records? If I say yes to that, now it's brought it up saying not all of the records selected were able to be deleted, and it tells us that the reasons that we had again before there, but any that do meet the criteria, it will remove out there for me. So it's deleted one of them for me. Another way that you can do it if you want to highlight, say you've got reams of customers in there, is if I just clear it, so nothing selected, I click swap, it will select absolutely everything for me. And we can see here that I've got 44 customers at the moment. If I go to delete now, and it'll just say, do you wish to delete them all? Yes, I do. Gives us that message again that not all the records could be deleted. Well, we know all of these ones aren't going to be deleted because they've got a balance on them. But if I just say OK to that, you can now see that's jumped down to 42. So there was a couple of records in there that met that criteria and have just been able to be cleared out there. So that's the manual way of just being able to go in and clear down, clear down your records in your customers there. So by clicking on them, just hitting delete, you can highlight multiple ones, or you can go clear and swap and highlight everything and just sort of bulk delete them out there. We'll have a look at suppliers now, because I'm going to show you an alternative way to be able to delete them. So something called our data management tool. So supplies is exactly the same method where you can highlight supplies, you can delete them, you can clear and you can swap and you can delete them if you want to, or you can highlight multiple records and delete them that way. So just the same as customers there. But if you're logged in as manager, I'll just clear that first of all. If you go into tools, so either logged in as manager or as administrator user, into tools, period end, and we've got an option called data management. If I click on that, again, just the window just to say it's going to close all open windows there, and it'll open up what's called the data management window. So within the data management window, so it just lets us know in order to make daily processing in Sage 50 accounts as quick and efficient as possible, we recommend you only store digital records for the current and previous financial year in your live company. So you've still got all the data in your backups and in archives. It's just talking about your live data. By removing old transactions and records that are no longer needed to view regularly, you'll find that most tasks become much faster. So things like running reports, running your VAT return, running year end. You can still access your old data by opening an archive of your company or restoring a backup. So that's why we always recommend and strongly advise to take both of those. Data management takes you through safely removing all transactions and records, and then it just says to click continue. In the compliance window, it just lets us know that for compliance purposes, to keep regular backups of your data. And provided that you've got a backup or an archive, you don't need to retain historical records in your live data. So if I click continue on there, now it'll get us to take a backup. So for the purpose of the demonstration, I'm going to skip it on there because you know what it looks like when we're taking a backup, and I took one before I ran through this as well. But it'll get you to take a backup, and it'll also tell you that the archive is optional. Now, I would always just say take the archive. And I keep saying it on these webinars that it's much, much better to not need one and have one in the background than to need it and not actually have it. So just take the archive, and it's just a snapshot of absolutely everything. And it's so easy to go back into the archive. You don't need to restore that back in. It's like opening another company on there. But you can see there, continue is grayed out. I can't actually click continue until I take the backup. So I'm going to click on backup, and I'm just going to say OK to that. Don't need to check it because I checked it earlier on, but you can always check your data just to make sure that it's in good health. So I'm going to run that quick backup on there. That's all gone through, great. And now you can see continue. I can click on that now. So we go into this window here. So this window, it's a really good indication to have a look and just see where you're at with your data levels as well. So you can see my data levels are ridiculously small on here. I've got very little in the company, but it tells us transaction wise, you want to be keeping it and not really exceeding 250,000 transactions. And it's not a limit. It's just telling you that it works best if you've got, under that figure in there. Invoices, which we'll be covering next week as well. That tells us no more than 50,000. Well, I've only got 19. And customers, I've got 42. But for customers and supplies, it tells us not to have more than 5,000 of each of those in there. So mine have all got ticks in them. Now, if you have a little blue circle with an eye in it, that's going to tell you that you're getting up to you're getting close to that limit there. An orange triangle with an exclamation mark in it, that's telling you that you've exceeded it, and that's when you want to have a look at clearing things out. So as I said, Michael's recently covered clearing the audit trail. There is a recording on our recordings page which goes through that. Deleting invoices, I'm going to cover that one next week. We're looking at the customers and the suppliers. Now we'll go into suppliers because I've cleared everything out that I can in my customer records. So if I click on review supplier records, what it tells us in here is basically the criteria. So the process will identify the supplier records where the last invoice date is on or before the specified below date there. So a supplier record could only be removed if there's no balance or transaction history. So that means the balance has to be 0, and also there's no activity on there. And it's not acting as a subcontractor's third party. So you can free type in here, so you can change the date in there. You can also click on there and it gives you a little calendar, which you can then select a date in there as well. But I'll leave that as it is, and I'm just going to click on review supplier records. And now when you do that, you might have a lot more than 3. You might only have 1 or 2 like I've got in there. But this tells me that these 3 suppliers meet that criteria. And I can then review them and say, right, actually, I want to keep that one. I don't want to delete this particular supplier here. So what you can do is you can just highlight the ones that you want to delete. So I want those 2. Tells me I've got 2 records selected. Now, if you've got loads in here and you think it's just that one that I don't want to delete, rather than having to click on every single one, you can clear all, you can select all, and then sorry, I didn't have my shift clicked on there. You can select all, and we can just unselect one of them. So because of my selection style, I need to have control hit on there for that, and it'll just unselect that one. Or if you've got a few that you don't want to delete, but you can review them in here. And I know it's just going to clear those 2 selected records. So I'm going to say delete those selected records. It gives me a confirmation it's deleted those. I'm going to say OK. Now, if I review it again, it'll just show that one in there now because I've cleared the other 2 out and I've kept that one remaining supplier. So it's a good way to be able to review them before you delete them if you want to. Customers just looks exactly the same. But if I click on review customers, because I deleted them all before that met the criteria, just tells me that there's no records found with the last invoice up to that date that meets that criteria. So that's a good way of doing it within your data management window there. So as we've seen here, you can manually delete them, but you can also use the data management tool if you're logged in as manager or as administrator level on there for it. So that's your customers and your suppliers. We have a look at nominal codes. So I've got a nominal codes on the left-hand side there. Again, must meet a criteria on there. So you can delete a nominal record if the balance is 0, If there's no associated transactions, they're not the control account as well. So if you have one and you're looking to delete it and it's the control account, you can amend that within settings. So if we just go to settings at the top, down to control accounts, again, that window just letting us know it's going to close all unsaved windows, and you'll get a list of all of your control accounts in there. So say you wanted to delete one of them on there, you can go in, you can manually change it if you need to on there. That's just if it's a control account there. So back into nominal codes. And you can't delete a nominal, or you can delete a nominal, sorry, if they aren't the default cash sales bank account as well. But essentially the same as your customers and your suppliers. So you can't use the data management tool for deleting nominal codes. So that's not an option in there. But if we have a look, so we've got one in here, which I don't think has, so that's got no balance on there. So there's nothing showing on there. So essentially we can just highlight a nominal code, click delete at the top. Do you wish to delete it? Yes, I do. And it's as easy as that. So it'll just sort of remove it out there. So I no longer have that nominal code. It's deleted that 1101 out of there. You can also sort of highlight multiple ones if you want to and click delete as well, just the same as your customers and your suppliers. If you really wanted to, you can clear, swap, and just highlight the ones that you don't want to delete and delete the rest of them. It's entirely up to yourself on there. As long as you've got a backup and yet you're quite confident that the ones that you want to delete, you can. You've got that option there as well. Bank accounts. So if we pop into bank accounts now, bank accounts can be deleted from either the nominal ledger, as it's also a nominal record, but it's also listed as a bank account. So you can delete them from within here if you want to. So we can come into our bank accounts on there, and you can delete them from within here, or you can delete them from the nominal codes list as well. So we can go in here and delete them from here too. So if we just go into bank accounts there, I think mine have got balances on them, or if we just have a look, or activity on, yep, so there's activity on that one. So that one won't let me delete that. So if I just create a new bank account just to show you, and we'll create one, say if we've got one, just to pop it in the list, we'll go 1212, and we will call it Laura, and we will save that. So I've got a new bank account in there. Say I've just created it in error. I don't actually need it, but you can see here, there's my bank account. We go into nominal codes and just look for 1212. So we can delete it from in here if we want to, just by clicking delete at the top, or we can delete it from the bank accounts. Again, just at the top there. So I click in that, and it'll just delete it out of there for us. You don't have the option to clear and swap within the bank accounts module. Chances are you won't have lists and lists of bank accounts, and you can only highlight one bank account at a time anyway on there. So it's not something you can sort of bulk delete bank accounts out of. I'm just going to pop back to my slides because I want to touch on the inactive records there as well. So there may be records which can't be cleared due to remaining activity. However, the accounts are no longer in use in the scenario. You can mark them as inactive if they meet the criteria. Now, I won't go into it in too much depth just because, like I say, it's a whole webinar in itself, which we're running again at 2 o'clock on Monday, but I just want to touch on it as an alternative. So the criteria, that depends on the type of record that you're marking as inactive. And I've included a link on the slide here which covers the reasons why you can't flag a record as inactive, but it includes things like the account balance not being zero, or there being unallocated transactions. So if you've got, say, an invoice and a credit note, the balance is shown as zero, but those two transactions are not allocated to one another, it won't let you mark that as is inactive. You would need to allocate the transactions first. If it's got recurring entries, invoices, or sales orders that exist, it's a control account or a default nominal code, and it can't be listed as a ratio account. But again, I'll go into all that in more detail on Monday if you do want more information about that. But I'll give you a quick demonstration of it as well. But marking a record as inactive just means you can exclude them from your record list, so you only see your active records. It also means you can apply a filter or run a report to exclude them or include them, maybe, if you just wanted a list of them. So for customers you've had no interaction with for a period of time, you might want to send them a mailing list. But I'll quickly show you how to mark a record as inactive. But I have added a link there if you want to sign up to the webinar, which is next week. But I'm going to pop back in just so I can show you it within the system there quickly. So I'll bring one up. So if we go into customers, and we'll have a look in here. So we'll pick on Dave's Diner. So he's obviously not been able to be deleted because we bulk deleted everything before. Anything that didn't meet the criteria is still showing. So if I have a look at the activity, it's obviously going to have some transactions on here. So we pop in. So we've got 2 transactions. Nothing's outstanding. They're allocated together, but there are transactions on there, so it couldn't be deleted. So what we can do is we can mark it as an inactive. Now, if I double click on the record, just so it brings it up. It's just having a little bit of a think about it there. And just in the details tab, we've got a little inactive checkbox. And I'm just going to tick that on there. And then I'm going to click save. And then we'll close out of this just to show you what it looks like in the background. So from when we first look at it, it looks like, well, actually, nothing's happened there. If I right click along this heading, and if I add in inactive, it will give me, when it has a little think about it, my computer, I think it needs a restart. So I do apologize if it's going a bit slow there. It gives me another column and it tells me that actually I've got 3 customers that are inactive. So they couldn't be deleted, but they're inactive. Now what we can do is we can just hide them in the background just by clicking this little include inactive. It's ticked. I'm just going to untick it. It's now removed them. So they're hiding in the background. Still there if I need them. By clicking on it again, they're still there. But it's just an alternative to being able to delete them. So if you can't delete them, you can look at marking them as inactive and then just hiding them out of view in the background there. Something else that I wanted to cover was following deleting records and to reduce the size of your data files, what you need to do is compress the data. And the best way to explain compressing the data is if you've got, say if you've got a bookcase full of books and you remove some of those books, the ones left are scattered all over the shelves. What compressing it does is it neatly puts all the books to one side and gives you the rest of the space as free space. So it's like tidying up the files for you in the background there. So if you delete a record from your customer list, the size of your data file does not reduce until the sales ledger is compressed there. Always ensure that you've got an error-free backup prior to running this routine, but essentially it's just tidying up the data in the background. So I want to pop back in. I just want to show you how to do that as well. We'll just open that up there. So compressing the data, so you've gone through, you've taken your backup, you've taken your archive, you've cleared out all the records that you want to clear out on there, you've taken another backup, so just by going into File and Backup again. The next thing that you'd be having a look at doing is that data compression. So if you go to File at the top and click on Maintenance, and you may have seen this window before, that just tells us, you'll have definitely seen that window before, just tells you that it's going to close all unsaved windows. But you may have seen this one for. You can check your data in here. You can also check the last results, last time your data was checked in here as well. But I would always say run a check of your data just by clicking Check Data, and then you can have a look at compressing the data following that. So your check data on there basically just goes through, checks you haven't got any errors or anything like that. You'll get this window afterwards telling you if you've got any errors, warnings, comments, etc. on there. So that's what that looks like. But for the compression, it tells us here if you've previously deleted large amounts of data, run this option to reclaim disk space used by deleted records. So when we click on that, I do apologise, it keeps opening on the other screen there. Drag this over, you'll get this window. And at the moment, everything's sort of grayed out. You can't tick on anything. If you untick compress all data files, because that can actually, if you've got a lot of data, that can take a little while to run that. What I would say is just the areas that you've been looking at clearing out. So we looked at the customer records, so the sales ledger, the purchase ledger, which were our suppliers there, nominal ledger, the nominal accounts that we've got and bank accounts as well. So those were the areas that I've been clearing out today. Now, if you blink, you'll miss it on mine because I've got a very small data set. Yours might have like a little progression bar that's going across, might take a few minutes just to run if you've got large amounts of data, but mine is local on the PC. And as you saw before, I had a very small amount in there as well. But I'm going to click on compress. And like I say, if you blink, you'll miss it. So we've got data compression complete. That's great. And that's literally it on there. And we close it. And that's tidied up those files for me in the background. So it was easy as that. Like I say, it might take a couple of minutes when you're running through if you've got more data than I have. But other than that, it just tidies it up for you. So clearing out your records, like I said before, it's an optional task. You're under no obligation to complete that. It's just more for good practice for housekeeping there. But clearing out your older data might allow you to work more efficiently in your data set. So if you've got a large amount of data, and you can check that from looking at the data management tool we looked at earlier, when you're logged in as manager or a user with full access. And that tells you the recommended levels and where you're at with those recommended levels as well. Just allows the program to work more efficiently because it's not having to search through the processes as many records. So if you're trying to run something, if you're trying to run a filter or a search on there or a report, it's having to search through hundreds and hundreds and thousands of customers. If you sort of bring it down to a level with under that 5,000 for your customers and your suppliers, it's just going to run more smoothly for you. Like I said earlier, though, if you are experiencing speed issues, please bear in mind it could be external environmental factors also impacting processing speeds as well. Always ensure you take a full backup and just ensure you've got an archive prior to clearing records. Just means if you do put the wrong date in to clear things down, you can easily just restore it back and put the right date in. And records will only clear if they meet that criteria. If you can't remove an item, an alternative may be for you to mark the record as inactive, which don't forget we're going to be covering on Monday at 2 o'clock. And then compressing the data just allows you to reclaim that disk space back again as well. So I have included some useful links here too. So we've got tidying up your data after your year end. So that might be clearing down those old records. The data management, so you saw there that you can use that for clearing your audit trail, your transactions, for invoices, customers and suppliers as well. And also compressing the data as well. So that just goes over what we've just demonstrated there as well. But sometimes it's nice to have something in front of you that you can read to. We'll keep this open just for a little while longer. It looks like we've got one or two questions that Michael's looking at the moment there. I think Yvette, you've asked, is there a way to select multiple accounts to mark them as inactive? There is, if you're on standard or professional level, you can use batch changes. So I'll pop back into my program. Now, we will be covering it next week as well. But if I just pop back into my program here, so say I had a few customers that I was going to mark as inactive. So we've got these three here, say, for example. I'll show it in reverse and then the other way. So these three customers here, I want to mark them as inactive. If you're on standard or professional level, you've got the batch changes option. Now that might show either just on its own along here. Again, if you can't see it, it might be one of two reasons. Might be the resolution on your screen. So if I make that a bit smaller, you'll see it's sometimes they disappear on there. We've got new and edit. We've got a drop down box and it just appears in there. If it's grayed out, it's just because you haven't got anything selected to make batch changes. Or it might just be that you've sort of right-clicked on there and you've removed batch changes from there. But if I click on batch changes, it opens up a blank record for me. Now, just to show you, if I tick it and untick it, just to sort of toggle that on and back off again so it registers that I'm making them active again, I'm just going to select that, say yes, and it's just saying that you've chosen to make changes to multiple records. Do I want to save changes? Yes, I do. Just have a little bit think about it, and you can see there they're inactive again. So if you were wanting to make them inactive, exactly the same, highlight them, batch changes at the top, tick the little box, click save, Just tells us that we're using multiple records here, just to make sure that we know that. Yes, I do want to do that. And there we go. So it's now made those inactive again. So you can do that. You need to be on the professional level or the standard level of the software for that in there. And then you can hide them from your list if you want to. So I hope that sort of answered that question before there. You can also access our webinars page. So I mentioned before that the Clear Audit Trail, Michael has gone through that recently, but we do have that on our recordings page. So that's at sage.co.uk/webinars. All the past recordings are free to view in there, along with signing up for the upcoming webinars as well. The link's just on the slide there for you too. So you can access that from there. And we also have our community hub, which if you haven't seen this before, it's an online forum for Sage 50 accounts users, just to share knowledge, swap ideas and solve problems. So it's completely free to join and you can ask questions where other users along with Sage experts can help and advise, or you might read something and think, well, I know the answer to that, and you can advise on there as well. But you can keep completely up to date with what's happening and it's open 24/7 as well. There is a link which takes you straight through to the hub on there as well. And I have included an additional survey, which I hope you won't mind having a quick look at. It's just to help us shape our learning around what matters to you most. So there is a QR code on there, which you can scan with your phone. There is a link on there as well. So if that's something that you want to scan with your phone, you can do, but also the link is on the slide there as well. But I think I'm just having a quick look at the questions there. Just having a quick look. It looks like we've got everything answered on there. I'm just having a quick look through on there. Yeah, so it looks like we've got everything answered on there. So that's good as well. So it does bring us to the end of today's session. So I really hope that you found it useful. Any questions that we haven't been able to cover, which it does look like we've got everything covered on there, what we always say is that we do pop you an email after the end of the session there. But as always, you'll get a survey when leaving today's session, which I'd love it if you could leave us any feedback or any comments. We do like reading the comments on the webinars and getting your thoughts on them as well, or even if it's just something that you'd like to see a webinar on perhaps in future. But for now, thank you for attending and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day there.